Greetings and welcome to a rather belated Stranded Deep update video for version 0.09 Rafts. Yes indeed, version 0.09 has been released, and indeed 2 hotfixes since it came out, because I have been quite remiss in getting my videos out recently. I do apologise to all of my regular viewers for that. Hopefully regular service will resume soon, but I'm not going to dwell on that right now. Instead, let's talk about what version 0.09 adds, and it is of course the much anticipated new rafts system. So we now have a modular raft system which we can use to build rafts of various sizes out of various pieces, a bit like the modular construction system. It's also worth pointing out that this update marks 1 year of Stranded Deep Early Access and is perhaps the reason why it was released arguably before it was actually ready. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. First, let's take a look at the actual rafts themselves and how you build them, which is pretty straightforward. It's the same as building the huts and other constructions in the game. You use the standard building materials and also these new buoyancy materials. I have dragged over some barrels here. These are free barrels. You can kind of move them around, drag them around with the right mouse button. Like anything else, they do actually come chained together in threes, and I so far have only found them out on shipwrecks and things. You can also place them obviously in the editor, which is how I managed to get them here onto Cave Island. So you just hit C to bring up your crafting menu, select the new anchor icon for the rafts section, understandably enough, and this is where you build your raft. Now, like constructing buildings, you have to build a base, which is equivalent to the foundation for the buildings, and then on top of that you can put floors, and then on top of floors you can put propulsion systems. So let's take a look at the bases. So you've got tire, barrel, buoy balls, and wood bundle rafts. So the three sort of like new things here, the tires, the barrels, and the buoy balls, all need to be found, I think, probably on ships. Buoy balls might wash up, I'm not entirely sure. Wood bundle is probably going to be the first thing that you would craft in a regular game, because you can make it with materials that you find on an island, i.e. wood sticks and lashings. It's actually pretty easy, pretty straightforward to make that. The tricky part will be probably the propulsion, but we'll get to that later. For now, I've dragged some barrels down, so we're going to use the barrels. Now, you can construct on the land or in the sea. It'll float if you put it on the water, or you can just pop it down on the land wherever you want, which is what we're going to do. Now, it does kind of sit in the ground. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't know if that's intended or if that's a bug or something at this stage, but it seems the collision model is kind of where the buoyancy line is. If you drag this into the water, look, then it'll float more or less along that line. So yeah, I guess it's something to do with it. I don't know exactly why, but maybe it'll be fixed in the future. Maybe it'll just be one of those foibles that we have to live with. Some rocks seem to collide with it, and some rocks don't as well. Again, I'm sure these issues will be ironed out in future. Anyway, now we've got a base, we can chuck a floor on it, so I'm just going to put down driftwood sticks, because that's what I've got piled up here for the purposes. Oh yeah, look, the ghost still collides with loose objects, look, leading to kind of, you know, hilarious things being flung all about the place. It was doing that with the raft bases as well, so when you were trying to attach these things to the rafts, you'd be pushing the rafts around, which was an absolute pain in the ass. Of course, that has been fixed in hotfix 2, so we don't need to worry too much about it. Anyway, look, there we go. So now we've got a basic raft. Look, we can stand on it, it'll float, but we've got no way of moving this thing around, and the paddle is gone currently. I hope the paddle will come back. I don't know if it will or not, because the new vehicle system, it seems to be predicated on a control point that you attach and you operate, and that provides the control interface and the propulsion. But I don't know. I'd like to see the paddle come back. I think the paddle was cool. Anyway, we don't have a paddle, so we're going to have to go with propulsion. And the basic form of propulsion, we're going to need a tarp, we're going to need a stick, and we're going to need a lashing, which I don't currently have. Fortunately, there's some yucca up here, and if I go and chop it down, you can see they've also added a lovely, luscious new yucca model as well. So this is looking much fancier and much lusher and generally more impressive than the old yucca. And more importantly, perhaps, it stands out much more. So they're much easier to find on islands, because if you've played much Stranded Deep, you'll know that searching for yucca can be a bit of a task. It can be a bit of a task. Anyway, oops, I need my axe. Let's just chuck that down. So we need a tarp, a driftwood, not a driftwood, I think a regular stick is what's needed. I don't think a driftwood will actually work. I think we need the regular stick. And a lashing, and if we craft a tarp sail, can also construct a boat motor if you have all of the various parts, but I don't at the moment. So we're going to go with the tarp sail. Much more likely that you'll have the ingredients to make a tarp sail to begin with. And this just snaps on like that, facing lengthwise along. There's no way to orient this as far as I know. It always faces in a particular direction, the forward direction for the raft, if you will. And that's fine. Now if we jump on, we can now sail the raft. I call it a raft. It's really more of a kind of crude, like, sailboard, maybe, like a windsurfing board. Yeah, maybe. Which is even more present when we actually control it. Look, we can't see the board underneath unless we look right down, which makes turning difficult because the raft will turn independently of you. You use A and D to turn the raft, and the raft will turn independent of your direction of facing, which is nice because it means you can kind of, like, you know, take in the scenery and stuff as you sail it around. It will turn like a single raft piece like this. It will turn very sharply under sail. It's got a fairly slow top speed, but it's probably still faster than swimming. I'm not entirely sure. Now this is alright, but like I said, you've got to kind of keep looking down to maintain control, and it might be slightly more useful if you could actually see the front of the raft. So let's just extend it, because this is the whole gist of the modular raft system. This is not it. This can become as big and fancy as we like within certain restrictions. So let's grab... Oh yeah, I flung a barrel over here, didn't I? Let me just get that barrel back. Oh, here it is. Get the barrel back. Which, as I say, you can just drag about as anything else. So we'll create a new barrel base. And of course, we could create a new raft if we wanted to. Or we can snap this on. And you can snap it on any of the sides, like that. If we snap it on the side, obviously we're making the raft wider. If we snap it on the front or the back, we're making the raft longer. So let's make it longer so that we've got a front that we can see. And there's no actual requirement for me to put a floor on this, and in fact I can walk on it just fine. The only thing you actually absolutely need the floor for is to attach the sail to, or indeed the boat motor. Beyond that, I don't know if it actually adds anything. And actually, if we push this out into deeper... Oops. Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, because it's quite narrow, it is a little bit on the unstable side, and unfortunately the sail is now dug into the ground, but I think that's just because it doesn't actually have any collision detection of its own. If you look at this, you can actually see the back is lying lower than the front, so there is some sort of buoyancy going on here, and adding the raft base bit here and then possibly the sail is weighing the back down more than the front. Now it seems to be a fairly simple, possibly buoyancy calculation, and also perhaps like early days, because there are some oddities about it. Look, if I put down on here now something like quite heavy, like a steel floor, so you would expect a steel floor to weigh a hell of a lot more than the sticks at the back there, wouldn't you? But if I put that on, all it actually does is straighten out. So it looks like all floor pieces have the same weight at the moment, and they all like weigh the raft down the same amount. So using a lighter material has no benefit from a buoyancy point of view to using a heavier material, which hopefully will change in time. I'm sure, as they have pointed out, this is the first iteration. I'm sure there will be lots of tweaks and changes and improvements as we go forward. Something else that's worth noting is that the raft system does not work with the building system at all. So you can't add, for example, a wall. Like a wall will not snap onto here. Nothing will snap onto here from the base building section. So you can't build bases on rafts. You can build rafts, or you can build bases. You cannot build a combination of the two. It doesn't work. Again, I would personally like to see that change in the future, but then I'm okay with slightly more fantasy-esque elements, slightly more, like Swiss Family Robinson, maybe, kind of, the idealistic stranded on an island, a desert island, where you can build all sorts of crazy stuff, and tree houses and rafts with houses on and all that kind of crazy stuff. I quite like that, but I realise that that's not going to be for everyone. Anyway, look, there we go. Now if we jump on the raft, activate the sail, now actually this thing's much easier to use. We'll just take this for like a little spin around the island, just so you can see it under sail, with a little bit of sea roll and stuff there. Again, a wider raft in theory would be much more stable, but I've never had a raft tip over because of the waves. It may be when we get bigger waves and more roll and wind effects and things like that, that there'll be more drive to actually want to build a wider raft. But as it is, the only reason you might want to build a wider raft is to try and transport things on the raft, which is kind of possible. Look, if I oops, here we go. Look, I could put like a piece of scrap down here on the front of the raft, and it pretty much stays there. Look, you'll see there's a little bit of juddering and things as I sail about, but it kind of stays there, and I think there is a certain amount of, well, there is definitely a certain amount of weight to things that you put on the front. But again, the buoyancy all seems to be a little bit squiffy at the moment. Like, there seems to be oddities in the way that we nearly tipped over. We nearly tipped over. Like, it's definitely adding weight to the craft, but actually, it stays reasonably well. Oh, it does affect the steering somewhat though, especially under sail. And as the moon sets, we just come around. Of course, it hasn't actually taken me all night to drive around the island. I'm just doing this for effect. But there we go. We're arriving in to Cave Island's little inlet bay here, and my shiny new dock. Now you can see there's a bit of a load issue here. Look, we're already pretty close. The dock's about to pop in. If we get a little bit, there we go. Look, the dock's popped in. So let's actually park it. It's pretty crowded, this dock, as you can see. Let's actually park it just in here. Ease it in. Look at this masterful sailing. Look, have you ever encountered a more stylish docking maneuver than that? And here we are in Cave Island as the sun comes up. This is my new dock area. Look, we've got like a little hut here, a little raised hut, just to look out over the dock. I've got a few little crafting things here. Now it turns out that actually navigating in and out of this channel is relatively difficult. It's pretty shallow out there, and there's only like a fairly narrow little inlet, which is really reliably deep enough at all tides to let craft come in and go out. So I managed to get this one in, which is, it's a fairly sizable little raft here. It's also got a motor on it, but we'll look at that in a minute. For now, I just want to take a little look at all of the various building materials. And what I've done is I've made some kind of standard one floor, one raft, one base, whatever you want to call them. I've made some sort of one base raft here, and it shows all of the different flotation materials that we've got. So we've got the little buoys, the little buoy balls. We've got the barrels, which we've already used, and we've got the tires here. And then on top of these, for reference here, I put on basically the same, like what I would assume is the heaviest floor, which is this like steel thing. And they all pretty much float at the same level, as you can see. So I think all of the bases at the moment have the same buoyancy value to them. I don't think you have any inherently better buoyancy, as I would have thought you would. Like, I would have thought these barrels, assuming they are airtight, would be considerably more buoyant than, for example, the tires. And probably even the buoy balls here, because, you've got quite a few buoy balls, but there's a lot of air contained in a relatively small amount of metal in these like raftings, so in these barrels. So I would expect them to be like the best, basically, but perhaps they're not. One thing that I haven't shown you actually is the wood sticks here, the wood stick bundle. I don't have enough sticks lying around. I apologise. It's basically just a wood stick bundle. All right, okay, fine, good. I don't think it lets you use driftwood either. So it's probably the first one that you will wind up making if you because I'm pretty sure most of these materials you'll need to go out to sea to find. And then on this side, just so that you can see them, we've got the different floors. That's what you have to work with. And as I said, because you can't build any structures on the rafts at the moment, it's pretty much just that. It's just going to be a flat raft. Now this is actually pretty good fun. Look, if we fire this up, this is probably the most functional that you can get. The motor means it turns on a dime. The small size means it turns on a dime as well. I mean, it really, look, I mean, you can basically just spin on the spot. It's got a fair turn of speed to it as well. Look, if we just open it up in a straight line, here we go. Oh yeah, see? It rides pretty shallow because there's not a lot of weight here. As you can see though, this whole inlet is pretty shallow. And yeah, in general, I think this is probably, once you've got this, there won't be much reason to use anything else unless you need to transport more than you can physically carry in your inventory, or possibly if you want to transport buoyancy things around, which is actually going to be the trick. because you can't put these in your inventory, right? They don't go into your inventory at all. None of them do. And you find them like this in threes. So you can just like bash them like you can bash anything, and then when it happens, there we go. Then you can like drag them around. You can't drag them around when they're in threes, and the same is true of look the barrels. The barrels are the same. They're like chained up here. You can bash at them with your axe until the chain breaks. The chain will break. Oh yes, I will break this chain with an axe. There we go. I'd actually quite like to keep the chain. I mean, I can imagine all sorts of useful things that I could do with a piece of chain, but it's just gone. It's disappeared into the ether. So, if you want to transport these, if you don't want to build your raft base in situ where you found them, then you're going to need to transport them. Now, you can transport things by just putting them on your rafts, but these rafts are pretty much too small. Like if we try and put one of these on our little motor raft here, for starters we're sort of clipping into the sail, but we'll forgive it that for now. And there we go. Oh, and over it goes. So this is a situation where clearly we need more stability and we need more buoyancy as well. Although I'm not sure we actually get more buoyancy, but certainly we need more stability, and we will get more stability. Now you could go for something like this, where I've basically kind of gone out wide in either direction. I was experimenting here with if having some kind of pointy front would help with sort of aerodynamics or aquadynamics. Is that the right word? For sort of drag affecting a craft's passage through the water? I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm pretty sure the game doesn't model it. It does model the stability, obviously, so like width is good, and weight, I suspect, slows you down. But look, I mean, this will now hold this pretty steadily. Look, it's there, it's on. We can fire up the motor, and we can head out, and it will jiggle around a little bit, as the thing that we put down before did. We're going to have to be a little bit careful coming out of this bay. But generally speaking, this is fine. I could transport one of these with ease on here. Now, of course, yeah, if I break, it could cause a bit of a problem. And if we just put this on, oh, there are some collision detection issues. Anyway, look, this raft is fine. You can transport like one thing in the middle relatively easily. I don't know if I can actually successfully tip this back over. I don't think I can. Come on, tip over. Tip over. It's lost to us. It's lost. It's no good. We're not going to be able to turn it back the right way up. Okay, well, never mind. That probably is a good place to leave off for this episode. I have got a little bit more that I want to show you, and there's more that I want to talk about with respect to Stranded Deep and the fact that it's a year old and how the development is going and all the rest of it. But I think I'll save that for the next episode. So until then, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I have been Weird Wizard, and I will see you later.